Picture this, a 40-year-old man who spends his days smoking cigars, sipping whiskey, and throwing money around Vegas poker tables like confetti. Most people would call him washed up, finished, a has-been, living off past glory. But when that man is Michael Jordan, the rules don't apply. What happened next would become one of the most overlooked yet mind-blowing comebacks in sports history. This isn't just about basketball, it's about pride, the trail, and a legend who refused to let age define him. Everyone thinks they know why Jordan came back. Love of the game, competitive fire, all that inspirational nonsense. But the truth runs much deeper than anyone realized. After retiring in 1998, MJ wasn't just chilling in retirement, he was building something. The Washington Wizards brought him in as team president and part owner, giving him the keys to an entire franchise. This wasn't charity, this was business. Jordan saw an opportunity to prove he could dominate from the boardroom, just like he did on the court. But here's where things get twisted. The more time Jordan spent around practice courts, watching these young players fumble plays he could execute in his sleep, the more that competitive demon started clawing at his insides. Watching guys like Kwame Brown, his own draft pick, struggle with basic fundamentals was torture for someone who lived and breathed perfection. Every missed shot, every blown assignment, every moment of laziness was like a personal insult to everything Jordan represented. The breaking point came during practice sessions, where Jordan would absolutely destroy players half his age in scrimmages. These weren't friendly pickup games, they were psychological warfare. Jordan was proving a point to himself and everyone watching. Age is just a number when you're built different. The seed was planted, and once it took root, there was no stopping what came next. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Jordan's comeback announcement was originally scheduled for a massive press conference in September 2001. The whole world was about to witness the return of the greatest player ever. But then September 11th happened, and everything changed. The terrorist attacks didn't just alter America's timeline, they completely rewrote Jordan's comeback story. Instead of the grand spectacle everyone expected, Jordan had to quietly slip back into the league through backdoor announcements and leaked reports. The man who controlled every aspect of his image suddenly found himself overshadowed by global tragedy. It was a humbling moment that probably ate at him more than anyone realized. Jordan was used to being the biggest story in sports, and now he was competing with world-changing events for attention. This forced subtlety might have actually worked in his favor, though. While everyone was distracted by bigger issues, Jordan was quietly preparing for something nobody saw coming. The whispers started small, just rumors about the old man showing up to practice. But those whispers would soon become roars when people realized what was actually happening in Washington. The preseason looked promising enough. Jordan was moving like vintage MJ, hitting shots, even throwing down dunks that reminded everyone why he was called Air Jordan. But once the real game started, reality hit harder than a Mike Tyson right hook. His shooting percentage was embarrassing, 37% from the field. For a man who built his reputation on clutch performances and impossible shots, missing became a foreign concept that was now his daily reality. The Wizards started losing games they should have won. 5 straight losses turned into longer streaks, and suddenly, everyone was asking the same question. Had the greatest player ever just ruined his own legacy? Sports commentators who spent years praising Jordan were now questioning his decision-making. The narrative was shifting from triumphant return to tragic mistake. But here's what nobody understood at the time. Jordan was going through a complete physical transformation. His body was literally falling apart and rebuilding itself at the same time. Knee tendonitis was eating at him daily. His back would spasm without warning. The hand injury from that cigar cutter accident was still affecting his shot. Most 38-year-olds would have packed it in after the first week. Jordan used the pain as motivation to prove everyone wrong. The lowest point came during that 8-game losing streak in November. This was officially the longest losing streak of Jordan's entire career. Players were questioning the system, fans were calling for his retirement, and even his own teammates were wondering if the old man had lost his mind. But champions aren't made during the good times. They're forged in moments exactly like this. Something clicked in December 2001, and what happened next was pure basketball poetry. Jordan realized he couldn't play like he was 28 anymore. So he started playing like he was 38, and it was terrifying. The explosive dunks were gone, but they were replaced by something more deadly, basketball intelligence that bordered on supernatural. Every possession became a chess match. Jordan would fake left, lean right, pump fake twice, and somehow find space that shouldn't have existed. His footwork became so precise that defenders looked like they were moving in slow motion. The fadeaway jumper that made him famous was now unstoppable because he'd added layers of deception that took decades to master. Against the Philadelphia 76ers, something magical happened. Jordan dropped 31 points using nothing but pure skill and veteran savvy. No athletic gifts, no highlight reel plays, just a master craftsman showing young players how the game was really supposed to be played. The crowd went silent during certain possessions because they were witnessing something that shouldn't have been possible. But the real statement came against the Indiana Pacers in a double overtime thriller. Jordan, at 38 years old, scored 41 points and hit the game-winning shots in both overtime periods. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. This was about proving that greatness transcends age, injury, and doubt. The kid who used to take everything personally had become a man who channeled that competitive fire into something even more dangerous. What happened on March 28, 2003, against the Charlotte Hornets still doesn't make sense. Jordan was weeks away from turning 40, playing on one good leg, and dealing with teammates who couldn't stay healthy. The Wizards were missing key players, and everyone expected a quiet loss. Instead, Jordan delivered one of the most dominant performances in NBA history. 45 points at 39 years old. Let that sink in. Players in their prime struggle to score 45 points in today's NBA, and Jordan was doing it as a senior citizen by basketball standards. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. The way he scored was what made jaws drop. Shots from impossible angles, contested jumpers that had no business going in, and a basketball IQ that made every possession look effortless. The most insane part? He did it again just days later with 51 points against the Indiana Pacers. 51 points at 38 years old, followed by 45 against the Nets, where he scored 22 consecutive points without missing a single shot. This wasn't just good basketball. This was supernatural. Young players were calling their agents, asking how they could learn to play like an old man. Even more mind-blowing was his performance against the Boston Celtics, where he scored his 30,000th career point. The milestone was historic, but what happened in the second half was legendary. Jordan put on a defensive clinic that reminded everyone he was once Defensive Player of the Year. Steals, blocks, and lockdown defense that frustrated players who should have been able to blow past him easily. The peak moment came against the Houston Rockets, when Jordan posterized 7'5" Yao Ming with an and one that sent the crowd into complete chaos. A 40-year-old man just dunked on one of the tallest players in NBA history. The physics didn't make sense. The age difference was absurd, but there was Jordan, hanging on the rim like he was 25 again, proving that legends don't age, they just find new ways to dominate. After 2 seasons of the impossible, Jordan expected to return to his front office role as promised. The verbal agreement was clear, the handshake was firm, and the understanding was mutual, or so he thought. What happened next was one of the most cold-blooded business moves in sports history, and it exposed just how ruthless the NBA really is. Abe Pollin, the Wizards owner, called Jordan into his office for what should have been a routine meeting about the future. Instead, it became a 20-minute execution that left even Jordan speechless. No discussion, no negotiation, no explanation, just a simple, "Your services are no longer needed." The man who had just averaged over 20 points per game at 40 years old was getting fired like a rookie coach. The betrayal cut deeper than any loss Jordan had ever experienced. This wasn't about basketball performance. His numbers were solid, his leadership was unquestioned, and his impact on the franchise was undeniable. This was about power, control, and the harsh reality that even legends can be discarded when they're no longer useful. Pollin offered Jordan a $10 million severance package, essentially paying him to go away quietly. Jordan's response was vintage MJ. He rejected the money and walked away with his dignity intact. The man who had made hundreds of millions throughout his career wasn't about to take pity money from someone who had just stabbed him in the back. Years later, Jordan would describe the experience as feeling used. and you could hear the pain in his voice. The greatest competitor in sports history had been outmaneuvered by a businessman who cared more about control than championships. So here's the question that keeps basketball fans up at night. Did Jordan's Wizards' comeback hurt or help his legacy? The numbers suggest it was a success. 20-plus points per game at 40 years old, sold-out arenas, and moments of pure magic that reminded everyone why he was the GOAT. But the lack of playoff success and the bitter ending left some wondering if he should have stayed retired. The truth is more complicated than simple statistics. Jordan's comeback wasn't just about basketball, it was about proving that excellence doesn't have an expiration date. Every 38-year-old who thinks they're too old to chase their dreams now has Jordan's Wizards years as evidence that age is just a mental barrier. Every young player who thinks they know everything about the game got a masterclass in how much more there is to learn. But there's a darker side to this story that nobody talks about. Jordan's comeback also exposed the brutal reality of professional sports. No matter how great you are, no matter how much you've accomplished, you're still just an employee who can be discarded when convenient. The fairy tale ending doesn't always happen, and sometimes legends have to learn that the hard way. The real legacy of Jordan's Wizards years isn't found in championships or playoff appearances. It's in the inspiration he provided to anyone who's ever been told they're too old, too broken, or too finished to chase greatness. He proved that age is just a number when you're built different, and that sometimes the most important victories happen when nobody's keeping score. Would Jordan have won another championship if Phil Jackson had come back in 1999? Would he have been better off never returning at all? These questions will haunt basketball discussions forever, but maybe that's the point. Jordan's Wizards comeback wasn't about adding to his trophy case. It was about proving that some flames never die, no matter how much time passes or how many people try to extinguish them. The man who once said, "I took it personally," turned his final NBA chapter into the ultimate personal statement. Age didn't define him, critics didn't break him, and betrayal didn't destroy him. He simply proved one last time that Michael Jordan doesn't play by the same rules as everyone else, and that might be the most valuable lesson of all.